Russia's involvement in World War I ended not only in defeat, but also in the destruction of the army and revolution. However, Russia achieved a number of successes which contributed greatly to the Entente's victory. 1. Battle of Galicia 1914. The Battle of Galicia was decisive in the early phase of World War I. About 2 million soldiers and 3,500 pieces of artillery from Russia and Austria and Hungary fought on a 400-kilometer front. The battle, consisting of a series of separate battles. Russia not only succeeded in stopping enemy movements, but also launched a massive counterattack. Not only that, Russia even managed to seize almost the entire historical region of Galicia and parts of Austrian Poland. After losing around 350,000 soldiers, both killed and captured, Austria-Hungary, with a third of its troops on the Eastern Front, suffered a crushing defeat, paralyzing the country until the end of the war. In almost all subsequent large-scale military operations against Russia, Vienna had to rely on Berlin for help. Austria-Hungary's defeat undermined Germany's victory in East Prussia. Apart from that, the defeat of Austria-Hungary also improved Serbia's position, which was previously under pressure from Austria-Hungary troops. Russia's success in Galicia was truly detrimental to the Austrian-Hungarian army and had a fatal impact on the dual monarchy, wrote Alexander Svechin, a military theorist who was directly involved in World War I. The Austrian troops, who initially fought with great enthusiasm, ended up running out of strength for the remainder of the war. 2. Operation Sarıkamış 1915. In late 1914, the Third Army of the Ottoman Empire fought desperately to capture the Kars region, then part of the Russian Empire, now Turkey. The 90,000-strong army, led by Enver Pasha, faced 60,000 soldiers from the Russian Caucasus Army and Armenian volunteer squads. On December 29, Turkish troops surrounded the city of Sarıkamış, which was a key area for both sides. Despite the enemy's superior numbers, the Russian garrison continued to put up fierce resistance, even managing to retake the lost railway station and barracks, and pushing the Turks out of the city. After failing to capture Sarıkamış, the Third Army of the Ottoman Empire increasingly suffered from frostbite and lack of food. Thousands of soldiers died in a day. This situation was exploited by Russian troops to launch a counterattack. Major General Nikolai Korsun of the Imperial Russian Army, who is also a military historian, described a flanking maneuver by Colonel Dovgurt's detachment to the rear of the Turkish forces. The Dovgurt column had to cover a distance of 15 kilometers in the midst of extreme snowstorms and deep snow deeper than the average height of a person. Sometimes they could only cover 2 to 3 kilometers a day. When the line was deemed no longer tenable, Russian troops emerged from the gorge towards the rear of the Turkish troops. As a result, the Third Army of the Ottoman Empire was completely destroyed. Up to 80% of the soldiers were killed, froze to death, injured or captured, while Russia lost 26,000 of its soldiers. The success of Operation Sarıkamış, preventing Turkey's attempt to enter the Russian Caucasus. Additionally, this operation assisted the British in Iraqi Mesopotamia and the defense of the Suez Canal. 3. Erzurum Offensive 1916. After the failure at Gallipoli in late 1915, the Allies began evacuating troops from the peninsula. For the Russian Caucasus Army, that means Turkey can now concentrate all its forces on them. Without waiting for the enemy to redeploy his reserve troops from the Dardanelles to the Caucasus, Russian troops immediately launched an attack. The 75,000-strong army under the command of General Nikolai Yudenich faced the 60,000 Turkish troops of the Third Army, which had been reorganized and regrouped after the defeat at Sarıkamış. The Turkish army, believing that Russia was preparing to celebrate Christmas and New Year, was completely caught off guard. Despite heavy snow and fierce blizzards in rugged mountainous terrain, Yudenich's troops managed to roll back the enemy and capture the strategic Erzurum fortress. The Turks lost more than 35,000 soldiers, many times more than the Russians. The success of the Erzurum offensive gave Russia room to advance further towards Anatolia. 4. Brusilov Offensive 1916. In the spring and summer of 1916, the Russian military was preparing for a major offensive in Europe. The Western Front Army Group led by General Alexei Evert, which has almost twice the number of soldiers as the opponent, will launch the main attack with the Southwestern Front led by Alexei Brusilov as additional strength. Brusilov's troops were the first to advance, and their unexpected success made an attack in this direction a priority. Even though the Southwestern Front was slightly outnumbered, namely 534,000 against 448,000, this front was not facing Germany, which seemed invincible, but the Austro-Hungarian troops, whose strength was incomparable and still experiencing trauma. Brusilov decided not to launch a concentrated attack, but to disperse his troops in several directions. This tactic initially worried Nicholas II, who was now Russia's supreme commander. However, soon the situation became more under control, because the enemy lines were broken through in several places at once. Russian troops advanced 120 kilometers, capturing Volyn parts of Galicia and Bukovina. Austria-Hungary was on the verge of defeat. Turkish divisions were even transferred from the Balkans to help Austria-Hungary. However, in August, the Russian attack began to go awry. With the arrival of new German troops, the attack was immediately stopped, making room for trench fighting. In the final analysis, the Brusilov offensive cost the Russians up to 500,000 men, while the Central Powers lost more than 1 million men killed, wounded and taken prisoner. Although the operation ended in victory despite the number of casualties, the Russians failed to break through the Carpathian Mountains and remove Austria-Hungary from the war. The passivity of other fronts, the indecision of the general headquarters as well as the lack of coordination with Russia's Western allies also had a negative impact. Chief of the German Army General Staff Erich von Falkenhayn wrote, "In Galicia, the most threatening moment of the Russian attack was suppressed when the first shots were fired at the Somme." Nevertheless, the Brusilov offensive significantly weakened German strength, and even more so Austria-Hungary. The attack also saved Italy, which was on the verge of defeat, and eased the French position at Verdun. Inspired by Russia's success, Romania entered the war on the side of the Entente, but this resulted in nothing but problems for the Allies.